Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our reactions to qualifying for the Singapore Grand Prix. That was a fun one, very much a nail-biter towards the end as well. Before we get into it, of course, like and subscribe, and a huge shout-out to our members, Dakota, The Joyous James, Robin Myers, and Cinnamon Strudel. If you want to become a member, there's a link in the description. But let's get into this, into Q1. And it was a slow start to qualifying. I mean, the end would definitely make up for the slow start, but it seems like the soft tyres here in this heat are incredibly delicate. So you've got to ease them in. So the outlaps were slow. People weren't really that in a rush to get out and set a lap as quick as they possibly can. So yeah, there was a slow start. The track was low grip as well. They had very heavy rain overnight, so all the grip that had been laid down through FP1, FP2, F1 Academy yesterday, all that had gone. So the track evolved quite a bit throughout Q1. But what was the surprising thing of qualifying all the way through from Q1 to Q3 was Max Verstappen. Now, in FP3 earlier today, the Red Bull looked improved, especially in the hands of Max from FP2 to FP3. The Red Bull definitely looked better than it was. But towards the end of the session, when they put the soft tyres on, when they had those quali runs, it still didn't look like it was there. It looked okay in race trim, but in quali trim it still didn't look great. But in qualifying itself, Max Verstappen has had a blinder here. And I think with this Red Bull struggling as much as it is, laps that he's doing might be overlooked ever so slightly. I honestly think this is one of Max's best ever qualifyings, all the way from Q1 to Q3. And he doesn't get pole in it, but with what that Red Bull is doing, how difficult it looks to drive, the laps he put in today were absolutely incredible. At a track where he's never been, consistently good. He's never had pole position here. It's the only track on the calendar he's never won at. It's a track which basically he is cursed at, but he did consistently well throughout all of qualifying today. Meanwhile, his teammate Sergio Perez was struggling an awful lot, as was both Mercedes drivers at the midpoint of Q1. But as we go through, there's some serious track evolution as the track gets grippier and grippier as people do more and more laps. Alex Albon goes top of the session to prove how much track evolution there has been. Despite this, though, as we go for our last laps, I was quite worried about Lewis Hamilton because he was in the lower half of this session at this point, going for his last fast lap. Didn't improve in Sector 1, but Sector 2 and Sector 3 made up for it, and he was able to jump up the order still. And as we close Q1, those who are out was Zhou once again in last place. Then it was Valtteri Bottas for an all-stake F1 Team Kick Sauber back row of the grid. Gasly in 18th. Lance Stroll in 17th, and Daniel Ricciardo in what could possibly be his last ever qualifying. He's out in Q1 in P16. I mean, there's no surprises really here. I mean, if you told me before that those were the names to go out, I wouldn't be shocked by any of them. The one, though, who has seriously let the team down is Lance Stroll. When you see what Fernando Alonso has done here, he gets that Aston all the way into Q3, doing incredibly well. Well, Lance Stroll here couldn't even get out of Q1. Very, very disappointing from Lance Stroll. As we go into Q2, there's an early bit of drama from Max Verstappen again here, who has a huge snap of oversteer just before crossing the line, nearly crashes it, but is able to catch it and able to keep on going from there. He does lose his track time due to track limits, but didn't crash it into the wall. A prelude to something that might happen later on. Mercedes at this point decide to run in the gap. So everyone's out at the start, everyone's out at the end. Mercedes have decided to run in the gap in between the two, have the track to themselves to try and avoid traffic here, and that really works for them. Lewis Hamilton went top of the session, George Russell went third. So from Q1 to Q2, maybe it was a bit of a traffic issue in Q1 that saw them so low down, but in Q2 they got on top of that and got some good running there. Once they came in, Max Verstappen went out, and he was running in the gap by himself as well there, and he was able to go top of the session at that point. As Q2 finishes, those who are out, it's Ocon in 15th, Magnussen in 14th, Sergio Perez out, 13th place for Sergio Perez. Really, really struggling today. And then it was both Williams, Colapinto in 12th, Alex Albon in P11. Albon sounding seriously annoyed on the radio after this session. Not happy at all. Albon just missing out on 0.024 from going into Q3. The Williams have been looking strong all weekend, but not able to get into Q3. Colapinto, though, is the one you got to give a huge shout out here. So he missed out on Q3 by 0.031. So very close for him. Even more impressive, not only is this his third ever F1 race, not only is it one of the toughest street circuits, if not the toughest street circuit on the calendar, but he hasn't received the upgrades for the car this weekend. The Williams have got new front suspension, but only on Albon's car. Colapinto has not got the upgrades and is still incredibly close to his experienced and incredibly talented teammate there. So fantastic job from Colapinto, I think, here in this qualifying, and he was annoyed at his performance as well. So, I think there's more on the table there for that Williams. Would not be surprised if we maybe saw him get another double points finish this time tomorrow. Going into Q3, and basically immediately, it was Carlos Sainz in the wall. At this point, only 3 drivers had set lap times. It was Piastri, Hülkenberg, and Max Verstappen who had set lap times. On the replay, shockingly, Sainz had done this on the warm-up to his lap. I thought he was trying to complete a lap. It was the exact same place where Verstappen had his issue before, just before the start-finish straight, where Lance Stroll crashed this time last year. So Carlos Sainz off into the wall. He moved over to let Piastri go through. What it seems like is maybe he hadn't heated his tyres up enough. As he goes to start his flying lap, well, not his flying lap, his timed lap, there's a bit of a bump on the road. He hits that. There is a bit of oversteer. He corrects it, overcorrects it, spins, and ends up in the wall. This brings out the red flag, and Max Verstappen's lap time gets deleted here. Initially, they said it was track limits, but there wasn't a track limits violation. Apparently, there's a rule that if there's a double yellow flag, your lap times don't count. I've never heard of this rule, but apparently it is a rule. So there you go. There was a bit of looking around to see had Max backed off sufficiently in the double yellow. I think that he did. From the analysis the Sky team did, they said he did as well, so there's no need to worry from that point of view. But when we're back underway, I think there was 8 minutes and 4 seconds left. I think that's, if I've got that one right, I deserve a pat on the back there, but I think that's how much time there was left. Not really enough time to do 2 lap times, unless you rush your outlap on your first lap time or even your second one, which is going to ruin the tyres. Like I said before, soft tyres looking incredibly delicate on this circuit to the point that you can't really push them too much on your outlap, otherwise the grip will just not be there towards the end of your timed lap. So no one really wanted to push it here, which means that we go to a 1-lap shootout. At this point, only Hülkenberg and Piastri had lap times on the board. And as everyone crosses the line, this is our top 10 for tomorrow. So Carlos Sainz did not set a lap time due to the crash. He is 10th. Of course, with it hitting the rear of the car, the gearbox might be damaged from there, so he might need to make changes. He could drop down from there. In P9 is Charles Leclerc, who did set a lap time, but it got deleted due to track limits. So a very bad Q3 for the Ferrari boys, who both looked quick throughout all the practice sessions. They look like the big rivals to McLaren this weekend, and they'll be starting 9th and 10th at most here this weekend. Yuki Tsunoda is a very impressive 8th. Alonso in 7th. We were talking about Lance Stroll before. He is 10 places above Lance Stroll for the start of this race. Fantastic stuff. Even more fantastic is Nico Hülkenberg. In the Haas, he was 6th. A fantastic job from Hülkenberg there. Oscar Piastri is in 5th, and I think he'll be a bit disappointed with that time. He looked frustrated as he crossed the line. Didn't really get the most out of his car here this weekend. At one point, it looked like he was going to get pole, because he was the only one, he was on top with those, only him and Hülkenberg setting lap times. If someone had crashed on that last lap and we got a red flag with like a minute and a half to go, there wouldn't have been enough time for us to restart the session and be able to do lap times. So Piastri, very close to getting pole, has to now settle for 5th, which is really not good enough there. George Russell is 4th. Lewis Hamilton in 3rd. Max Verstappen, unbelievably, in P2. And then Lando Norris is on pole. I think he was a few tenths faster than everyone else. I mean, realistically, you would have bet your house on Norris having pole here in this race. He looked so quick on the soft tyres in FP3. It looked like no one was going to get anywhere near him. So Lando Norris getting pole position. The question now is, can he keep the lead into lap 1 tomorrow? I really thought that the Ferraris were going to come through and challenge in the race. I still believe that the Ferraris have faster race pace than the McLarens, but now they have so many cars to pass to get close to the McLarens that will they even have enough time within the race to do it is the question. But yeah, this is very exciting here. So, of course, Lando Norris P2 in the championship, Max Verstappen P1. They'll be starting side by side tomorrow. We've seen some interesting things happen from the start of the Singapore Grand Prix. We could see some interesting things happen here as well. I mean, realistically, there is a high possibility that neither of those get to the end of lap 1, and we see Hamilton and Russell just breeze on through to control this race. This is setting up for a super exciting one. Singapore is always exciting. As I said, it's one of the hardest street tracks that we have on the calendar. The humidity, the heat, the speed of it all, and the walls are just so close to the cars at all times. There has always been a safety car at this race, so something is definitely going to happen tomorrow, and I cannot wait to see what it's going to be. I'll be here, of course, to talk through all of it this time tomorrow, and we'll be talking about F1 Academy as well, so make sure you join us for that. Until then, though, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Goodbye.